Good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. And I mean that not as a formality, but genuinely, because Indivisible and its work matters. You show up, you organize, and you hold your elected officials accountable when so many have given up. The Indivisible movement has been one of the few real forces for grassroots democracy in the country, and again, I thank you all for being engaged. Brief background: I was raised in New York City. I have 3 sisters. I became a lawyer after college. I have 1 daughter. She's 22 and lives in New York City. My area of law was 100% federal law in federal courts with very big clients, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, etc. So corporate law. And at some point, very recently, I said, nope, that's it. I need to do something far more engaged, political, and change-making. So here I am. I am going to be direct with you and address the elephant in the room, which is that I am primarying our long-term Representative Lois Frankel. And I'm not going to gloss over why. I grew up believing the people we send to Washington work for us, not corporations, PACs, or billionaires. But Congress is failing us. Almost everything is more expensive since Trump took office for a second time, after he promised to lower costs. Government services are diminishing, and our tax system is literally designed to make the super rich super richer while bloating our national debt. I'm in this race for Arlene. She is someone I met doing voter registration in one of the poorest neighborhoods in West Palm Beach. She is a mother and a full-time manager at Walmart. And she relies on SNAP benefits to feed her family. A full-time manager at the biggest retailer in the world, in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Food benefits. I'm in this race for young families who are now priced out of the neighborhoods they would love to live in and raise their children in. And for retirees watching their drug price costs go up, up, up. We have the money, we have the resources, and what we don't have is a Congress with the will to make structural economic changes. Here's why. What do Walmart, Blackstone private equity, Lockheed Martin, billionaire Stephen Ross, AIPAC, and the Orthopedic Surgeons PAC have in common? They all fund Lois Frankel's campaign, among many other donors. So who are these donors? Stephen Ross, as you know, is a real estate mogul worth about $15 billion, and his company, Related Ross, is pumping $10 billion into West Palm Beach to turn it into the Wall Street of the South. Florida Crystals is the Van Hool billionaires. They burn their sugar canes every year and pollute the air, causing asthma in children in the Glades. And then there's AIPAC, her biggest donor by far. She has taken $2 million from AIPAC, including $1 million since I announced my candidacy. And her voting record reflects every dollar of that. She votes in line with AIPAC's position every time, including last summer, for example, when a MAGA Republican introduced a resolution condemning anti-Semitism and expressing gratitude to ICE for protecting the homeland. Most Democrats refuse to be in that gotcha game with the Republicans. Lois voted for it. As if we wouldn't know Lois condemns anti-Semitism without that vote. We all condemn anti-Semitism. In addition to voting how AIPAC wants her to vote, Lois refuses to co-sponsor bills that might anger them, like the pending West Bank Violence Prevention Act, which was introduced by Representative Nadler and has 139 co-sponsors out of 214 Democrats. She also left the Progressive Caucus, as you probably know, over Gaza and their comments. So when your representative takes big donor money, they are not free to fight for you. They are beholden to those big donors who have big expectations. So I am an ardent supporter of overturning Citizens United. And you obviously know, based on your response, that that is the 2010 Supreme Court case that is at the root of so much that is broken in our politics. That decision held that corporations are people and money in politics is free speech protected by the First Amendment. Because the Supreme Court made that law based on the highest law of the land, the U.S. Constitution, we can't just pass a law in Congress overturning it. That would be unconstitutional. So what do we have to do? We need a constitutional amendment to overturn it. Now, when I tell people that this is one of my top priorities, they laugh in my face. That will never happen. But I want to remind people, this is a bipartisan issue. Most Americans are very concerned, if not upset, about money in politics. Yep. In 1971, we amended the Constitution in 100 days. From passage in the House to ratification by the states, and that was to lower the voting age to 18, and Nixon was our president. Now I'm going to tell you more about what I am fighting for and why I'm running. This is not just about stopping our authoritarian president's agenda. It's about building something positive and needed by our people. It is time for universal health care. Thank you. We agree. We are the richest country in the world, and we refuse to help our own people with a basic standard level of care. We spend more on health care than any other peer country and have the worst outcomes. It is time to face these facts. Our for-profit system doesn't work for most of us. Medicare for all, or whatever version we ultimately adopt, would end copays and deductibles and save our economy billions every year. In addition, we are running out of time to prevent the worst impacts of climate change. We must prioritize switching from fossil fuels to clean energy. Thank you. President Biden did a lot to try and mitigate climate change, and Trump has aggressively dismantled every single initiative. That was his gift to the oil executives who raised $1 billion for his 2024 election. Hello, Citizens United. And if you haven't noticed, we are at war again in the Middle East, and the oil industry is, again, massively profiting at our expense. We need to reform Congress itself. Term limits, lobbyist guardrails, no more stock trading by members of Congress while they vote on legislation that moves markets. Self-enrichment based on insider trading is pretty much the last reason we elect people to Congress, am I right? We need to reform the Supreme Court. Yes. Lifetime appointments made sense when people lived to be 50 years old. They don't make sense now. We need term limits for justices and rules around when a president gets to appoint one after Mitch McConnell blew up all our norms. We need a binding code of ethics so that certain members of our court are not getting luxury vacations from people with cases before them. Clarence Thomas. Finally, I will fight for affordable housing. We know we're in a housing crisis in America. Property reinsurance for climate vulnerable states like ours, and for raising the minimum wage so our people like Arlene can actually live on what they earn in one full-time job. I will also join or build a coalition to pass meaningful immigration reform with dignity and a reasonable path to citizenship. These are not small goals, I know that, but this is not a small moment. And you people in this room know that. We have a tremendous opportunity in this next Congress when people are so fed up with Trump, corruption, and do-nothing Congress. So our incumbent, Lois Frankel, has been in Congress since 2013. She's running for her 8th term. And in all that time, she has passed 5 bills, 4 of which were commemorative. A plaque in a post office, a gold medal, and 2 statues in the US Capitol. The 5th bill was an administrative amendment that's so complicated I would have to read it to you. Statues and plaques are lovely, I don't deny that, but we need bold legislation and zealous advocacy. The Center for Effective Lawmaking, a project of the University of Virginia and Vanderbilt, ranked her the 3rd least effective legislator last term out of Florida's 28 members of Congress. You all have been sounding the alarm on the countless catastrophes the administration has created, and you are so right. And you deserve a representative who matches your urgency. I suspect many of you, however, are worried about November and keeping this seat blue, and that is a valid concern, because this seat is actually in danger of flipping red. And this is based on the facts of voter registration, not me fear-mongering. 10 years ago, after Lois was in office, Democrats had a 52% voter registration advantage. It is now 1.4%, or about 11,000 voters. I am worried that if the incumbent wins this primary, we may lose this seat to a Republican. This district contains Mar-a-Lago, as we know. So we have an opportunity to send a message, not just to Palm Beach County or Florida, but to the entire country and world, that in Donald Trump's own backyard billionaire place, the people chose a congresswoman who can't be bought.
Yes.
Okay, Indivisibles, please ask me hard questions and hold me to the same standard you hold everyone. I am not running to be above accountability, au contraire. I am running to be the most accountable and hopefully reachable representative this district has ever had, and I hope I can earn your vote. Thank you.
What is your opinion on the SAVE Act, especially the one that's been passed here in Florida by our illustrious governor? And the other question is, who will you take donations from? What corporations, if you're not particularly fond of doing what your opponent is doing? What plans have you got in place?
Thank you. I'll start with the second. I take no corporate or PAC or lobbyist donations, 0. I am firmly and squarely and always will be in the camp of small individual donations, which is defined as under $200. I'd say that's 90% of my donations. One is allowed to give $3,500 per election, individuals. And I have had a few in the thousands, very few, but I take no big money, never will. I'm completely committed to that. First question, I'm totally opposed to the SAVE Act. We know this is a voter suppression effort. We know that non-citizen voting is already against the law, and we know it's not a problem in America. And frankly, this is what I think I see Republicans doing over and over. They create a problem that doesn't exist. They all get their talking points from the media to the politicians and hammer it and create a problem such that people are genuinely upset and worried, and it seems like that's the only way to save our country, and it's all a scam. It's to deflect you from things that are going badly for the administration, which right now is just about everything. So the SAVE Act and other diversions we've seen over the years fall into the category of don't look there, look here, pretend it's a major problem, and if you're patriotic, you'll care. We don't need a SAVE Act. Thank you.
My question is that you obviously are going to, if you're elected, walk into a rather nest of vipers. There are still going to be a lot of Republicans there. So what's going to be your approach? How are you going to deal with them? How are you going to negotiate? How are you going to get them on your side?
Thank you. I am a very open-minded and open-hearted person and quite friendly. So I actually have a plan to have lunch with as many Republicans as I can fit into my busy schedule and get to know some of these people, because I don't understand this blind allegiance to Donald Trump and harming your own constituents year after year after year. So it may sound naive, but I do want to actually try to get to know some of these Republicans in hopes of a better day. And with existing Democrats, I'm already making lists of who's great on what issue, so that when I get there, I can seek them out and say, you've been a campaign finance reform champion, may I please work with you on the pending bill? There's already a pending constitutional amendment bill, actually. And just join forces with whomever have been the leaders on each topic I care about.
Like you, I do have issues with AIPAC's influence on policy and politics and politicians. And certainly I have issues with Israel's actions in the West Bank and Gaza, but I wonder, what is your stand toward Israel?
I am and have been a supporter of Israel, and I say that as somebody who's never been to Israel, so I've not seen it with my own eyes. But what I've read, my understanding is they did a beautiful job creating a country and taking care of their people. And they have public benefits we don't have, like healthcare and affordable college. I think Netanyahu has been a terrible leader for Israel, like Trump has been a terrible leader for us. And I feel so sorry for the majority of Israelis who hate him and want him out, in the way I feel sorry for us dealing with our authoritarian. He's corrupt, he's facing trial, he seems incredibly arrogant, and has a lot of military supplies to manifest his arrogance, shall we say. So I never want to not have Israel as an ally, especially in that part of the world where we need a democratic ally. And I never want to not support Israel just from our historic moral reason for supporting Israel. That said, I will never condone the kind of war crimes and mass killing that he's undertaken and is right now in Lebanon. And I need our government to be nimble and exercise whatever pressure we can to try to get him not to commit war crimes. Sending him unlimited bombs and billions would not be my style. He's not a leader who deserves that. He's a leader who's hurting his country, his people, and all the people around him here.
I live in Del Rey in your district, and if you don't take money from big corporations, and Lois Frankel does, and obviously has a lot of monetary support, how will you fund a campaign against her that would be meaningful? It's already April, and the election is November. How will you raise that kind of money to get your name out there and your beliefs at this point?
Thank you. The election's in August, so it's even sooner. I will never have her level of money. I'm running a very grassroots and what I call scrappy campaign, meaning I am everywhere I can be all the time, meeting as many people as possible. And the overwhelming response I'm getting from the district, mostly canvassing and showing up to events, is, it's time for change. I'm so glad you're running. So I have that wind in my sails, and I have deep frustration toward Congress, from DOJ to war to all of Trump's other abominable acts, that if ever there was a time to run a low money, high energy campaign, I think 2026 might be the ideal year. So let's hope with this much money and 4 months to go, I've been at this for almost a year, we can pull this off. It would be a very nice statement in response to money in politics and that problem, to say, I raised a tenth of what she raised and I won. Let's make it possible. It's democracy.
I just had a question about your campaign priorities, because I was checking out your website, and I noticed that you support strong reform for ICE, but not abolishing ICE. So I wondered if you could articulate why you feel that way. And also, I wondered if you support holding the killers of Renee Good, Alex Preddy, and the 1,200 migrants that have gone missing accountable.
Definitely. I'm a very pro-accountability candidate. The reason I'm not for abolishing ICE is because I lived through 9/11 in New York City, and my father worked in the Trade Tower. And ICE was founded after 9/11, and ICE had a role to play, counterterrorism role. The fact that Trump has rewritten the purpose of the organization and thrown so much money at it for the wrong reason, to me, is not necessarily a reason to abolish it. If it cannot be reformed, and if we need to come up with a new agency to help with counterterrorism, fine. I'm just not ready to say kill it without trying to reform it and reclaim its original purpose. We can certainly take away some of its money. There is no need for that level of funding.
I'm with the Indivisible hospitality team over there.
Oh, good food.
And in the hospitality group, a lot of us feel that the Democratic Party has basically betrayed us with their leadership. And what I'm talking about are things like the conspiring against Bernie Sanders in 2016, when he was probably the most likely candidate to beat Trump at that time. And then also the leadership today, such as Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, who many of us do not feel represent the progressive arm of the Democratic Party. Now, what would your relationship be with the centrist Democratic leadership, such as Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and that like?
I don't even consider them centrist. I consider them compromised and bought. So we need to get rid of them. I try not to label my positions, and just generally in politics, because it's so easy to dismiss people based on labels. So I don't think there's a progressive wing so much as there's a Democratic value wing that's been quashed by the bought wing. And the bought wing is so the majority now. It's partly why I'm running. We have got to reclaim our representatives to represent us. And they've lost touch completely, and they just run on their own agenda, and what we want and need doesn't really matter anymore, which is not okay. It's not a democracy. So I will absolutely vote against both Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, and let's get some great leaders in there. I love Elizabeth Warren, for example, and and then Bernie, I want to say that I was a Bernie supporter in 2015, and I was in Brooklyn, New York at the time, and watching Debbie Wasserman Schultz use the Democratic Party against him was so undemocratic and so wrong. I have never forgotten it or really forgiven it. So I'm very pro-democracy and pro-primary. It's democratic, it makes better candidates, it gives voters a choice, and I was very resentful of what she did during that primary season.
I have a question about following laws. I'm just a regular person, and to me, following laws means if someone breaks a law, they are apprehended, whatever action they did stops in that moment, hopefully it's reversed, and then they're punished. The last at least 3 months since I've been following it, especially with ICE, there have been laws that have literally been breaking the law, all up and down the ladder, and the Constitution has been violated. So my question to everyone running is, will you uphold laws? Will you uphold the Constitution, which is what we sign up for, we swear when we sign up as voters for Florida? And I know you will, but I'm feeding you.
Thank you.
Because we need people who are going to uphold the laws.
100%. I am deeply offended, perhaps especially as a lawyer, by the breaking the law with impunity phase of America. I've never seen this before. I'm outraged by it. It is obviously wrong, and it needs to stop. So if I win, I hope we can impeach and convict within 100 days while we're amending the Constitution. It's going to be a busy 3 months, because this can't go on. He is flouting the literal foundation of our country, why we formed a union. to have laws that everybody has to obey and that are applied equally to everybody with consequences. And pardoning Jan 6, pardoning these massive fraudsters is disgusting, and it needs to change, and we need to reform the pardon power, because as usual with him, he abuses his power, blows up norms, and makes us realize, oh my goodness, we need guardrails we never knew we needed. So yes, I believe in the rule of law, and I am horrified at the law breaking that's going on in front of our eyes.
I would like to know, what is your political philosophy?
Ooh. Big picture. My political philosophy would be by the people, for the people, of the people. I am in love with democracy and our founders' vision, for all their flaws, and there were many, our founders' vision and our Constitution, which was meant to be a flexible change with the times document, is a beautiful thing. And I want to reclaim the foundations of our democracy and remind ourselves of what matters, why we loved our country, and where we've gone wrong. And I will say this, my father was an investment banker on Wall Street and a capitalist, and he said to me one day, I should be paying more in taxes. I said, really? That's unusual. He said, Reagan cut them, I got rich, it was wrong. Greed is infinite in human nature, and unchecked greed will destroy us. From the words of an investment banker. And I thanked him, and still do, in his grave, because he's right. We have to have limits on things, and that's okay. Not okay, it's essential.
If you are hopefully elected, will you push to get onto the House Judiciary Committee and the Oversight Committee to hold Pam Bondi and Hexeth and all these other son of a guns who've been, outrageous and what have you? So you're going to push for those committees?
Oversight is my first choice because I'm obsessed with accountability. Judiciary would be wonderful too. Thank you for asking. Those are my top choices. And I also want to, I didn't bring this up, but I want to regulate big tech and stop at the algorithm manipulation of absolutely everybody and the rage. So if I could, maybe I'm not techie enough to be on that committee, but if I could learn and do that, I would do that too. Thank you so much, everybody.